Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on February 25th, 2025, at approximately 9 p.m. PST. Now, I've made it my life's journey to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I love when that happens. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I guide virtually every movement I make by. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success depending on their own personal effort. Now, before we get into it, nothing like tech problems to start things off. Real quick update. My computer decided it was going to try and run on Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet, causing all kinds of problems. However, true to form, Storm managed to get it sorted out. So, with that in mind, Storm is our primary moderator. He's the one to make sure tech does continue to run, which is amazing in my world. Okay. He's also the one to make sure we don't have extra problem children in the house. And we have LA Moon, who is also in the house tonight. And she's the moderator that keeps the conversation going and has this wonderful little habit of making sure I actually get to eat. Which, yes, didn't have a great dinner tonight, but I did have food. Now, tonight we are going to be looking at tarot, some notable discrepancies. I'm not entirely certain if I call them discrepancies in all fairness. Okay, but I will tell you this. Tarot itself, my understanding is real simple. When it was first developed, it was developed as a storyboard, essentially. Now, I know a lot of people that when they're reading tarot, they go, so many people look at tarot and go, there's where the power is. That's where the information comes from. What you guys got to realize is true tarot readers, the cards do form out where they'd like to be. Okay. But the actual ability to read is built into the tarot reader, not the deck. Okay. Now, there is something we have to realize. So many seekers will turn around and go, oh, I need a tarot reading. You don't tend to realize that the ability is actually in the reader. Okay. And yes, this does mean there will be some discrepancies in outcomes. This is why the cards are really handy, because the cards tend to provide an unbiased outlook, and they work as a buffer, if you will. Just making sure I'm not missing something here, which I probably am. But one of the biggest things that I look at is this. If you're looking for answers, if you're going to a tarot reader, understand every single one of you can learn to read tarot. It is not, now, understand it's far easier or far more efficient, if you will, to actually get somebody else to read. Because the drawback here is this. If you're reading for yourself, the odds are, now there's a couple of things you can do with it, but the biggest problem is your own outlook, your own preference, or your own desires can get in the way. This is why it is so important to really figure out what the cards mean. Now, I work with the Rider-Waite deck. I've worked with others. Okay. Now, I'm just going to grab something I didn't think to grab. There's been a lot of change over the years. A lot of change. And that's being said with a staggering amount of sarcasm. This here is literally the deck that started it all for me. Okay. This neat little deck right here. But now if I can get my hands to work. I've worn a lot of the coating off it, so they don't slide well. But you'll notice the pattern is still the same. Primarily because once you get one built, you don't bother. Whoa, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Wow, that was typed poorly. Didn't like the last way, eh? Will Rider, you are in with the goal tonight. Now, the neat part, and I'm in the middle of putting this together. Okay, because, of course, things have changed for me in a lot of ways. So I've ended up with a whole lot more free time to myself, which works out well. I am at this point, just to put it out there, I am at this point putting a tarot course together. Now, the thing with tarot is this. You are right, LA, that the reality of it is a tarot layout actually helps give structure, keeps you organized, so you're not scattered all over the place. Now, this deck, I wonder if I can find it. I know it's on the bottom. There we are. Flip that over. That is my original. This is the original deck. This one I got back, I was 16, so this would be 1979. Was when I got my first deck of cards. This one. Okay, still in reasonably good shape. This is a new deck that I was just gifted just a couple of months back. Okay. But here's the thing with tarot. Okay. Having a layout and having a couple of them laid out is very important. But the thing that people seem to forget, if you get a good book, remember, I've got that sitting here. This is what I get for not actually being quite organized. Whoa, that was near a disaster. Not there. Okay, that's about as much time as I'm going to look for that. Oh. When I first got a deck of tarot cards, in all fairness, you take a look at it. Okay. Now, I was an English major. Still am. So when I got this book of cards, this box set, you take a look at that name. Okay. Now, I looked at it and went, Mastering the Tarot. As you can tell, my pronunciation was a little different. But when I got it, I got the basic lessons. I got the tarot revealed. This was a complete box set. Okay. And as you can tell, it's a little on the older side. And of course, we've also got the sexual key to the tarot. Now, the funny part here is this book. Okay. This is the one I learned on. And good books the really good books have 15 to 20 definitions. Now, here's the problem. The cards tell and give messages based on the individual, which means they tailor make them to every seeker. Trying to get my cards back in the box. Okay, well, what that means, Operation Shutdown, how you doing? Glad you could join us. What we got here? I get overwhelmed with images, so it helps me. Yeah. Doesn't it, though? That's the neat part. Let me ask you this. And I'm just wondering who's going to put any information in. this card. Okay, now as you can see, it says strength. But what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you're looking at reading this card? And again, everybody can read them. It's just most of you don't realize it. But let's get to the discrepancies. Number one, there are not only 15 to 20 definitions. Okay, there are a little more than 8 billion definitions. You're not going to find a book covering all of them. Okay, I am in the middle of documenting an extended course to be able to teach people how to read tarot. Now, the reality of it is, I've been reading them since I've been reading for myself since 79. It was 1986 when I first started reading professionally. Okay, so I'm looking at almost 50 years. Next year, it'll be 50 years of reading professionally. So yes, I am going to be teaching it, and I'll end up teaching online. But that's for down the road a bit. Okay, but when you look at it, what is you take a look at the card. Now, in this case, it's a strength card. Okay, and the way that you read these is not just a question of look what the book said. What does it feel like? Okay, now you take a look at all the little bits and pieces. As a matter of fact, I wonder where is my green one? Gotta be over there. Chad, how you doing? Glad you could join us. There we go. LA goes, I got a how-to about 40 years ago. Never bothered with anything else. It has about 15 definitions. Yeah, it's funny, I've got a book here that a reader with some 60 years under a belt put together. And they're all basically the same. They give you 15, 20 definitions. Okay. But the big thing I found is this. Most people, if you read the books, they tell you how to read them right side up. Here's the big discrepancy I run into. Okay, grab a book. Now, you're only going to read it right side up. Okay, so here's what you're doing. You open the book. Now, you're going to try and get the whole story, and this is why I read both directions. Let's just open this up to where I've got numbers. Okay, now here's the thing. Take a look at the book. Now, you got 2 pages. You're only reading right side up. So you're only going to read every first page. And since I got writing here, we're going to read this page here because you're reading only right side up. So when you turn the page, you're only going to read this page, but you're not getting any of this information. Tarot cards get read when you're looking at them. I know some of you are going to argue this point, but you place it right side up, it gets read one way. Okay, now here's the kicker. Turn it sideways, either right or left. It's got different priorities. Turn upside down. You've got 4 different directions here. Now, here's the kicker to it. One card. Okay, you look at the dominant way it's sitting. It's sitting right side up. I appreciate that, LA. You know, the neat thing with this is you take a look at it, it's sitting right side up. So you read it upside right side up. And because you're reading right side up, okay, you go with the idea this is love. But here's the kicker. You read from the top down. Okay. But that's because that's the dominant position it's in. But you also read from the bottom down as though it was inverted. You just put your priority on the way it's sitting. All of the information is always there. If you try reading a book, okay, and you decide you're just going to skim through it, only read one page out of every four. This is a good idea. You'll get the story. Would make reading a lot quicker. Philip, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I gotta take a look at this. We've got Operation in with the gold. We have Chad in with silver. Then we've got Philip Blair. You're in with the bronze. Now, when you're reading tarot, you take a look at the card, the way it's sitting in the layout. Oh, I forgot something. Okay, and this is going to throw you guys for a loop. I developed a layout. I can't show you a picture of it right now. Okay, but I developed the standard layout is something called the Celtic Cross. Okay, if you've read tarot, you'll understand what I'm referring to. Okay, but I wonder if it's in this. Should be in this one. I'm just looking to see if it's actually got a picture of layouts. I don't honestly recall. And since I'm not going to fight to find it, okay, with the Celtic Cross, there are some people work with a delineator, which we'll get to later. Oh, not a problem, Ellie. I do apologize. I didn't actually see him come in. LA's just letting us know, woo, you've actually got the gold, which does mean that Operation came in with silver. Chad, you got the bronze. And this means Philip came in with honorable mention. And no problem. This is why, this is one of the things I count on you to do there, LA. So apology seems a little overstated, but accepted nonetheless. The thing is, you read all of the card from all directions, but the dominant positioning of it is right side up. In this case, it's right side up. Now, here's the thing I kind of overlooked with the layout that I use. Okay, a Celtic Cross uses 10 cards. The layout I use, which I call the portal, uses 47, I think. What do I got? 9 and 12 is 21, and another 12 is 33. 37. Okay, I use a layout that has 37 cards. Okay, which means not only do I read right side up, sideways, upside down, and the other sideways. Bear in mind, if it's laying sideways, you're reading from the top to the bottom. It all plays in, and like I said, it's all connected. Neat part is with me, I've got half my cards, well, a third of them are laid at an angle. So you've got the other 4 points. So in all fairness, when I'm reading, okay, most people look at that, they've got one card. I look at that, and I've got 8 cards right here. Okay, meaning 8 times the information can come out of it. Okay, depending on how you look at it. Now, the other neat little kicker here, this neat little number at the top, that's a Roman numeral number. Okay, and again, we're looking at the same idea. Numerology and tarot does interact. That is actually a really good question there, Operation. And no, Operation is just asking, will the time of day or the location affect the result of the reading? Only if you're trying to read in the middle of traffic. No, the reality is, Operation, tarot works on a different line of energy. So no, what time of day you're reading, what and where you're sitting when you're getting the reading doesn't have a functional bearing. Although I will tell you, if you're looking for information on, for instance, a given building, it is so much easier to, well, in some ways it's easier to read in said building. But the time of day, really, I recommend when you're wide awake. But it has no functional bearing. When you're looking at them, first thing we have to realize is you've got, like I said, 8 billion. That number, by the way, comes from the population, approximate population. Okay, you got 8 billion there. And then you turn it a little, we get another 8 billion. Well, one card for me is not 8 billion definitions. Because I read all the way around, okay, I get 64 billion definitions times by the number of cards I'm working with. Okay, now here's the neat thing. Most people think you read right side up. That's all you got to worry about. Technically, you can do it that way. Of course, try reading a sentence by only reading 1 out of every 8 words. And yes, somewhere in this whole mess of things, I actually have under construction. I actually have another deck of cards I'm building. Started building it a long time ago. With what's just happened to me, there's going to be a lot of changes there. But the other thing you got to look at, okay, is when you're talking, now I've said 8 billion. Here's the other thing we got to remember. Multiply that by 3. Very much the case there, LA. LA is just reminding us that astrology and tarot are 2 different sciences. And yes, they do work. By the way, this is just something to keep in mind. Okay, you're looking at a card. Now, there's 3 types of people looking at this card. Okay, male, female, and literally speaking, nulls. Okay, because that's a complication. No, we don't go into multiple genders here, but every card does get impacted by the gender. And I will tell you this, it gets impacted by the gender of the person, not by what they relate to. Okay, I can't hold this in front of a deer and expect to come up with information on a dog. Doesn't work that way. But it does have a difference if I'm reading for a female or I'm reading for a male. Okay, it becomes blatantly obvious if you're looking at the face cards. Okay, because if a queen shows up for the female, for a female querent, the queen is referring to that individual's strengths. Okay, if the queen shows up for a male querent, okay, then the queen usually refers to what that male is seeking in a female, depending on a lot of other variables. Okay, so you got to remember, you're dealing with one card, right side up, roughly 8 billion definitions. Okay, now the neat part about that is that it still reads that one facing, that one gender, because, well, you are whatever gender you are. It also reads the other 2 qualifiers, male, female, and not male or female. Okay. AKA, we go back to that funny little thing of 1 plus 1 equals 3. Male, female, and the transition point. Okay. Now, You take a look at it. There's a lot of information you can pull in. Not the least of which, and this is where a reading face-to-face comes in so much easier. Okay. There is such a neat little added bonus to reading tarot. When you're reading face-to-face, it works like a charm. Philip's asking, do past life strengths carry over this one? Absolutely they do. However, it is imperative to realize that we focus on this lifetime while you're living this one, even though you've got past life influence. Okay, the tarot refers to it literally, it'll pick up on the past life influence, but it still focuses attention on your current life. Okay, so it's not going to tell you, oh, if you're hoping it's going to tell you who's your wife going to be, or who's the guy that you're going to get in touch with that's going to help your business. Blue Cruz, how you doing? Glad you could join us. It will pick up that information without a problem. But the thing you got to remember is in today's world, whether you were born, whether you remember your last life better than this one. I met somebody who was so caught up in remembering in the visions they had from their last life on a different planet. They didn't permit themselves to actually function in this world. Now, when you're doing a layout, okay, and this is how I found out I was supposed to get into tarot in the first place. Mom and Dad got me this deck. Okay, of course, I opened the deck up and I looked at it and went, a book, Mastering the Tarot. Then I opened the cards up and I'm like, oh, look, picture cards. Little did I know what kind of impact that was going to have. So when you're looking at it, we can absolutely, now there's a lot of different layouts. When I mentioned I'm going to be setting up a course for people, I will set up a course. I've already got it laid out here somewhere. That will help people read the tarot themselves. Okay, I still recommend if you're looking for information for you, it's best to go to a reader for one reason. Okay, and I'll give you the key for those of you that can do it. But the one primary reason is your own personal desires, your own personal wishes that things will work out one way or another can taint the reading. Now, there's a neat question out there about why can't I read for myself? Well, you can, but there's a neat little kick to it. Okay, when you go to read for yourself, let me ask you this, and I don't know if anybody's going to answer. I'm only going to give you a couple of minutes. What is the one difference, and it's a physical difference, between reading for somebody else or reading for yourself? Okay, just curious if anybody's got any idea what the one difference is. And this is what causes most tarot readers a problem in trying to understand it, in trying to read for them. Okay, here's the kicker. When you're reading for somebody else, well, familiarity is not a bad option. That is one of the big things that causes a kink. This is why it's so much easier to read for people. The fact is, Storm, when people are trying to read for somebody they're familiar with, it can taint the reading. Proximity, only a manner of speaking. But here's the kicker. When you're reading for somebody else, you're looking at them. And whether you realize that you're reading the aura or reading the body language or reading pheromonal discharge or not, doesn't matter. You are. But the big difference you're going to see is when you're reading for somebody else, that aura shows up around them. Okay. When you're reading for yourself, you're clearly not seeing your aura. So the key to reading for yourself, and this is the one so many people miss. You put a mirror in front of you. Now, I'm looking into the computer, so I get to. Now that's a scary thought. I get to see me. Ugh. But at least I've got the view, so I can see the aura around it. Okay, that's the big difference. Okay, yeah. LA goes, I generally don't read from me, as you say, I'm biased. And for others, I have completely open mind. And that's the real catch to it. This is why I'll open a card up and go, well, we have an interesting little problem. I'll take a look at that. Now, this card, this is the Three of Swords. As you can see, kind of indicates heartache. However, heartache has all kinds of different aspects. Okay, this also tells you that there is also celebration coming on. There are things happening behind the scenes. And of course, you even look at the different pictures. When you're aiming at reading for you, okay, put a mirror up to you, either a mirror or a camera, so you can see the person you're reading for. It will help immensely. Don't take my word for it. Give it a shot. Okay. But when I'm talking about teaching people how to actually read, I'm referring to a neat little thing. Okay. When you're learning to read, you gotta learn the basics, obviously. Okay. Now, another neat little piece of information. The tarot deck. Originally, and I gotta find the documentation for it again, but originally my understanding is it was written to literally pass on a major message. It was a storyboard of sorts. Okay. Then the gypsies got a hold of it and figured out how to make money. But the neat part about this is it will help unlock hidden doors that you don't even know are hidden. Okay. The big thing about it is when you start looking into it and you start contemplating on that image. And it is recommended by many readers, by many teachers. Take a card, one a night, okay, and just sit there for an hour and meditate on it. Take in as much information as you can. The positioning of the person. In this case, you look at the way she's standing, look at the crown, look at the connection between her and the lion. Okay. Many readers will tell you meditate on the card. I'm a firm believer that if you run on instinct, once you got the basic comprehension down, it's very easy to put it together. The difficult part, of course, is knowing whether you're being biased. And let's just go from a blanket. You are. Every single reader I've ever met has a tendency of being biased one way or the other. You don't have options. Okay. But you learn, and this is where the cards come in handy. You do learn if you focus on the primary positioning. Okay. That will tell you what you're putting your primary focus on. Okay. The other thing you got to realize here is this. Now, we got the one card, there's all sorts of things going on with it. Second card, you read on its own. Okay. On its own first, in all of its information. Then you place it side by side. And depending on where it sits, you combine the two cards. So you start off with 8 billion, take a second 8 billion. Now you put them together. You now have 64 billion definitions. And this is where instinct and familiarity come in handy. Now, of course, and I'm not going to do all the math here, okay? You add a third card, and all of a sudden you've got a neat little problem. Third card, you're now 64 times 8, which is 480, over 500,000. Just see that, just on principle. 512. But that's 512 billion. Yeah, that would do it, LA. LA goes, I had to meditate on each card to learn how to read. Where I was, there were no books. Now, I read the books. It took me 7 years of playing with the cards before I would read for anybody. This is why I got them at 16. I didn't start professionally reading until I was 23. Fortunately, when I get the course up and running, I kid you not, by the start of the course, like you'll start with no knowledge. And I don't know how long the course will take. I do know I'm going to end up writing a book to document it. Okay? But by the end of the course, you will have not only designed, but tested your own layout. And then you start learning on your own. Once you got one, you start learning. Okay. But I could tell you could go to a book. Absolutely, the books that are written, the ones that have 15, 20 definitions, not a bad starting place. Just don't limit yourself. Okay. I say there's roughly 8 billion definitions. That's only if I'm counting reading for humans. Okay. So you learn, like this card here, the ten of Cups. Okay, this is what I call the wish card. Because whether it's upside down, whether it's right side up, upside down, sideways, it doesn't matter. It always boils down to, this is the card that brings the ultimate level of luck, of love to you. That which you desire to have. But understand, I said desire. That which you want to have, the odds are you won't get anyway. But that's another topic for another day. Now, the other thing you got to remember, okay, there are, let me see, 78 is, now ain't that nice? Remember I mentioned that thing about 12 being the ultimate wisdom? A deck of tarot cards has 78 cards. This means when you break 78, using the 12, the universal numerology, using base 12, 78 means 6 complete sets. Okay. Poetically Mistaken, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, the answer to your poetically is asking, how does detachment to the outcome affect the reading? Well, the detachment from it means you get to see a much more clear picture. You don't get to taint it with, well, that could be bad for the person. You're just looking at the facts of the matter. What passes for facts? Okay. So when you're reading, do not look to what you'd like it to say. And you may find you really have to remind yourself of this. Okay. Quite often I will tell people when I go to do a reading, I really wish I could say something different, but I refuse to lie to you to make you feel better. So, if you're hoping for a promotion and the promotion isn't coming, I just look at it and go, look, the odds are not looking good. Understand something very critical. Many people turn to tarot or turn to tarot readers with the idea they're going to have all of the answers. Let's get something straight. Where it comes to tarot, we're playing the odds. You got to remember, when you look at it, if most people go down this path, the odds are that's what's going to happen. However, the wish card says, it may tell you when you look at the overall picture, it looks like, it's going to be really touch and go. But the wish card shows it's tilting in your favor. Now remember, sometimes getting what you wish for is not actually a benefit. It's not necessarily as good as you think it might be. This is one of the reasons why I say take a look in the mirror. Read for that person. Don't look to the outcome. You look at the question, take the information, and if you have to, and this will help immensely, you literally write the cards down. Not the name of the card, okay? But you write down the information you're getting. And then you take a look at it. Now, when I'm doing a reading, I only ask one question. After I ask, what are you seeking? Okay, throughout the reading, I will ask one very simple thing. Does this make sense to you? Because, and so many querents will sit there and go, I'm not saying a word. Here's the problem. If I'm looking at a card and I'm picking up there's a bit of a hiccup, okay, and I ask you, does it make sense to you? Understand a tarot reading is a cooperative effort. If you don't actually pay attention to that, okay, what you're going to find out is that you don't get the insight you're looking for. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. When you go think, then speak. When you're going to a reader, okay, and they pull a card, like for instance this one. Now, this card, the Queen of Swords, usually indicates a dark-haired woman. Now, whether that is black hair or brown hair, that can vary. But usually, as in the Queen of Swords comes up indicating black. But here's the kicker. Okay, if I, as the reader, am looking at you going, do you know somebody with black hair? Or I'm picking up somebody with black hair. Well, let's face it. I don't know the stats, but the massive majority of people have dark or black hair. Okay, but when you're doing the reading, state what you're picking up. Certainly, I regularly ask people, does this make sense? Okay, if they say no, do not take that as though you're wrong, but do take it as they may not know what you're looking at. Okay, I had a client years ago I read for, and I kept telling them they wanted to connect with this chap Don. That was all they told me. They didn't want to tell me anything else. Okay, I'm going through it, and this is why I say you got to learn to trust your instincts. I kept telling this woman about this Don, but the way he was, she's going, I don't know anybody like that. Until 45 minutes into the reading, she goes, oh my gosh, that Don was a childhood friend of mine that died when he was 9. I said, oh, when you compare it to him, does all of this fit? And she goes, absolutely. I said, well, let's see if we can find the other one, but we are down to 15 minutes. The fact of the matter is your instincts may be picking up something that the querent is not aware of. So do trust your instincts. But whatever you do not get argumentative. Okay, that doesn't look good at all. It doesn't work well either. Now, you will find there are a lot of different words for this. Okay, this is the 9 of Pentacles. But I've seen it as the 9 of discs, the 9 of moons, the 9 of coins, okay, the 9 of shells. And you have to look at the different card to find out what they really boil down to. But they all read the same way. I will tell you, one of the reasons I like the Rider-Waite deck is because of the fact that it's simple. Okay. Now, I currently, if I remember the number rightly, I'm in the middle of building a deck. I designed it a long time ago, and I think it's got 111 cards. But it's not a tarot deck. Okay. When we take a look at it, the big thing you got to remember is when you're reading, and this is going to sound a little odd, you'll notice I pick my cards up with my right hand. There we go. Poetically mistaken is calling the Nine of Pentacles I was just looking at. Now I don't know which deck you're using, but yes, the elements are used. Pentacles does coincide with the element Earth. Okay, when you look, now where do you go? You gotta remember exactly how they are. Cups connects with water. Okay, your swords with fire. And now I'm missing a coin here. I love when I pull a blank, then when I pull a blank. Fire. Oh, and of course, wands with air. I hate when I pull a blank and I'm trying to say something. It just completely scrambles things. Okay, but the biggest thing you have to realize is that all of these cards interlock with each other. Okay, they are all connected. And this is, again, why I look at the numerology at the same time. Now, you'll notice with Pythagorean numerology, it stops at 9. Okay, well, bad news, there's more numbers than that. Okay, but when you take a look at the numerology I pieced together, okay, when I start looking at universal, you go up to number 10. Now, of course, you still got 11 and 12, and that's a neat little complication. But it's all connected. The one thing, the biggest discrepancy that people don't realize, it would seem, is that the psychic is simply a conduit for the information. Now, there is a rumor, and I'll call it a rumor, it's a little overstated, but it is said that the layout of the cards that the players can lay that the reader can lay them out the way they desire. I put that to the test one day, and I had a client that actually told me that. I said, fine, you pick the cards you desire, and this is how you know things are a little odd. I literally handed him the deck. I said, instead of just shuffling them, pick out the cards you desire and lay them on the table the way you desire, and we'll see what pops. Okay? Because with only 15 to 20 definitions, you're going to have an awful lot of limits. This guy laid out the cards for me, and I told him, I said, he goes, well, how many? I said, you tell me. I've only got an hour, so keep that in mind. Right? So he lays out the cards the way he chose. And I read the cards he chose the way he laid them out. He looks at me and he goes, I have never felt transparent in my life until now. Okay, the cards simply help the seeker, as in the reader, simply help them focus on what the question is, on what the outcomes are. That's what they do. The information's already there. Okay, and this is something that we can actually remind ourselves how to do. Every single one of you can do it, but don't kid yourself. It's very easy to get caught up in the idea of, oh, I'm a tarot reader, I know so much more. You really don't. And that's the other massive discrepancy I've run into with many readers. Oh, I know how to read tarot, so I'm better than everybody else. No, you're not. It's another skill. Okay. this funny thing. Not exactly a tarot deck, but there is so much information locked in this that you can read. I'm curious. Okay, even something like this, I can utilize for the purpose of focus and reading. Okay, but tarot itself is simply it's a keyhole look at a different world. Okay, that enables you to see far more than what you may normally recognize. The thing you got to remember is on every card has a good, a bad, and a neutral outcome. You take a look at this one, the Four of Swords. Okay, when you look at the Four of Swords, it usually, if it's in this position, indicates relaxation, peace. Okay, thank you very much there, LA. But you look at all the little things because in the corner, you've also got an indication this is also a card of indicating a teacher. You know this because of the picturing up in the top. Okay, so many people look at just the big picture, just the Four of Swords. Okay, when you take a look at it, you take a look at the style of the swords, the positioning of the person, you look at the entire picture combined and in bits and pieces. Yeah, LA, you really could. In your case, far easier than most. I remember I had a client one day that asked me, if I really needed the cards. I looked at him and I said, I don't know. I said, why don't you go out to your truck? Now, bear in mind, he was in business suit. Okay, casual business, but business. I said, I don't know. Why don't you go out to your truck and grab a handful of drywall dust out of the back of your pickup, right behind the driver's seat? And he looks at me and goes, how do you know I drive a truck? Wait a minute. How do you know I got drywall powder in the back of my... Okay, you don't need the cards, do you? I said, no. There's not a reader worth their salt that requires tarot cards. Okay, but what the tarot cards do is give a certain amount of comfort to the querent. Okay, but the ability is within the individual. And just like any other muscle, you can learn to use it. Okay, I will keep you posted as soon as I get the course up and running. Because I don't know what it's going to cost. Can't give you that at all. Okay, I can tell you it's not going to be a $15 course. Okay, but the thing you've got to realize is this is simply another tool for understanding. All things are connected. Okay, and I will tell you that just in case you're one of these people, you're running into somebody that goes, "Oh, tarot cards are evil." Put the card on the table, walk away. See if it gets up and goes anywhere. If it does, you may have some other interesting questions. Okay, cards, tools, the whole 9 yards cannot be evil. They themselves are neutral, but the images within will trigger positive, negative, and neutral feelings. Read them all. Okay. Like I said, the Celtic Cross uses 10 cards. Okay. I use a layout that uses 37. Okay. But and I was going to tell you that. A tarot card, the tarot decks all have 78 cards. Okay. That means the tarot deck, when you take 78 and break it down, 6 complete cycles of 12, making 72, plus 6 extra to get to 78. You're back to 12, the number of ultimate wisdom. These cards contain the keys, the hot links, if you will, to the incredible array of information held in the Akashic records. Okay, And that's where your past lives can come into play. Now, here's something for you, LA. LA had written a bit ago, that I think we could spill salt and pepper on a table and read that. In all fairness, take salt, pepper, and cinnamon. Okay. And now you've got a threefold way of reading it, because now the color and positioning in the images, just like with tea leaves, become a pertinent point. Now, I'm just looking at the clock here. I do want to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us today. Really appreciate it. We are going to get carried away with a number of things coming up. But this is Tuesday, so tomorrow and Thursday I won't be here. On Friday, I will make sure I post this for us, because we're going to get into some interesting topics. Okay, but until then, I do want to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Surprised I got here at all with the technology problems we were having. But I will see you again on Friday. Okay. At that point, we will open other doors. But I'll be posting before that as to what. Now, in the meantime, until we talk again, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes,